The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis. Part 3. Book 1, the 12th chapter, The Value of Adversity. It is good for us to have trials and troubles at times, for they often remind us that we are on probation and ought not to hope in any worldly thing. It is good for us sometimes to suffer contradiction, to be misjudged by men, even though we do well and mean well. These things help us to be humble and shield us from vainglory. When to all outward appearance men give us no credit, when they do not think well of us, then we are more inclined to seek God, who sees our hearts. Therefore, a man ought to root himself so firmly in God that he will not need the consolations of men. When a man of good will is afflicted, tempted, and tormented by evil thoughts, he realizes clearly that his greatest need is God, without whom he can do no good. Saddened by his miseries and sufferings, he laments and prays. He wearies of living longer, and wishes for death, that he might be dissolved and be with Christ. Then he understands fully that perfect security and complete peace cannot be found on earth. The 13th chapter, Resisting Temptation. So long as we live in this world, we cannot escape suffering and temptation. Whence it is written in Job, "The life of man upon earth is a warfare." Everyone, therefore, must guard against temptation, and must watch in prayer, lest the devil, who never sleeps but goes about seeking whom he may devour, find occasion to deceive him. No one is so perfect or so holy, but he is sometimes tempted. Man cannot be altogether free from temptation. Yet temptations, though troublesome and severe, are often useful to a man, for in them he is humbled, purified, and instructed. The saints all passed through many temptations and trials to profit by them, while those who could not resist became reprobate and fell away. There is no state so holy, no place so secret, that temptations and trials will not come. Man is never safe from them as long as he lives, for they come from within us. In sin we were born. When one temptation or trial passes, another comes. We shall always have something to suffer, because we have lost the state of original blessedness. Many people try to escape temptations, only to fall more deeply. We cannot conquer simply by fleeing, but by patience and true humility we become stronger than all our enemies. The man who only shuns temptations outwardly and does not uproot them will make little progress. Indeed, they will quickly return, more violent than before. Little by little, in patience and long suffering, you will overcome them, by the help of God, rather than by severity and your own rash ways. Often take counsel when tempted, and do not be harsh with others who are tempted, but console them as you yourself would wish to be consoled. The beginning of all temptation lies in a wavering mind and little trust in God. For as a rudderless ship is driven hither and yon by waves, so a careless and irresolute man is tempted in many ways. Fire tempers iron, and temptation steals the just. Often we do not know what we can stand, but temptation shows us what we are. Above all, we must be especially alert against the beginnings of temptation, for the enemy is more easily conquered if he is refused admittance to the mind, and is met beyond the threshold when he knocks. Someone has said very aptly, "Resist the beginnings. Remedies come too late, when by long delay the evil has gained strength." First, a mere thought comes to mind, then strong imagination, followed by pleasure, evil delight, and consent. Thus, because he is not resisted in the beginning, Satan gains full entry. And the longer a man delays in resisting, so much the weaker does he become each day, while the strength of the enemy grows against him. Some suffer great temptations in the beginning of their conversion, others toward the end, while some are troubled almost constantly throughout their life. Others again are tempted but lightly, according to the wisdom and justice of divine providence, who weighs the status and merit of each, and prepares all for the salvation of his elect. We should not despair, therefore, when we are tempted, but pray to God the more fervently, that he may see fit to help us. For according to the word of Paul, he will make issue with temptation, that we may be able to bear it. Let us humble our souls under the hand of God in every trial and temptation, for he will save and exalt the humble in spirit. In temptations and trials, the progress of a man is measured. In them, opportunity for merit and virtue is made more manifest. When a man is not troubled, it is not hard for him to be fervent and devout. But if he bears up patiently in a time of adversity, there is hope for great progress. Some, guarded against great temptations, are frequently overcome by small ones, in order that, humbled by their weakness in small trials, they may not presume on their own strength in great ones. The 14th chapter. Avoiding rash judgment. Turn your attention upon yourself, and beware of judging the deeds of other men, for in judging others a man labors vainly, often makes mistakes, and easily sins, whereas in judging and taking stock of himself, he does something that is always profitable. We frequently judge that things are as we wish them to be, for through personal feeling, true perspective is easily lost. If God were the sole object of our desire, we should not be disturbed so easily by opposition to our opinions. But often something lurks within or happens from without to draw us along with it. Many, unawares, seek themselves in the things they do. They seem even to enjoy peace of mind when things happen according to their wish and liking. But if otherwise than they desire, they are soon disturbed and saddened. Differences of feeling and opinion often divide friends and acquaintances, even those who are religious and devout. An old habit is hard to break, and no one is willing to be led farther than he can see. If you rely more upon your intelligence or industry than upon the virtue of submission to Jesus Christ, you will hardly, and in any case slowly, become an enlightened man. God wants us to be completely subject to him, and through ardent love, to rise above all human wisdom. The 15th chapter. Works done in charity. Never do evil for anything in the world, or for love of any man. For one who is in need, however, a good work may at times be purposely left undone, or changed for a better one. This is not the omission of a good deed, but rather its improvement. Without charity, external work is of no value, but anything done in charity, be it ever so small or trivial, is entirely fruitful, inasmuch as God weighs the love with which a man acts, rather than the deed itself. He does much who loves much. He does much who does a thing well. He does well who serves the common good rather than his own interests. Now, that which seems to be charity is oftentimes really sensuality, for man's own inclination, his own will, his hope of reward, and his self-interest are motives seldom absent. On the contrary, he who has true and perfect charity seeks self in nothing, but searches all things for the glory of God. Moreover, he envies no man, because he desires no personal pleasure, nor does he wish to rejoice in himself. Rather, he desires the greater glory of God above all things. He ascribes to man nothing that is good, but attributes it wholly to God, from whom all things proceed as from a fountain, and in whom all the blessed shall rest as their last end and fruition. If man had but a spark of true charity, he would surely sense that all the things of earth are full of vanity. The 16th chapter. Bearing with the faults of others. Until God ordains otherwise, a man ought to bear patiently whatever he cannot correct in himself and in others. Consider it better thus, perhaps to try your patience and to test you, for without such patience and trial, your merits are of little account. Nonetheless, under such difficulties, you should pray that God will consent to help you bear them calmly. If after being admonished once or twice a person does not amend, do not argue with him, but commit the whole matter to God, that his will and honor may be furthered in all his servants. For God knows well how to turn evil to good. Try to bear patiently with the defects and infirmities of others, whatever they may be, because you also have many a fault which others must endure. If you cannot make yourself what you would wish to be, how can you bend others to your will? We want them to be perfect, yet we do not correct our own faults. We wish them to be severely corrected, yet we will not correct ourselves. Their great liberty displeases us, yet we would not be denied what we ask. We would have them bound by laws, yet we will allow ourselves to be restrained in nothing. Hence, it is clear how seldom we think of others as we do of ourselves. If all were perfect, what would we have to suffer from others for God's sake? But God has so ordained that we may learn to bear with one another's burdens. For there is no man without fault, no man without burden, no man sufficient to himself, nor wise enough. Hence, we must support one another, console one another, mutually help, counsel, and advise. For the measure of every man's virtue is best revealed in time of adversity. Adversity that does not weaken a man, but rather shows what he is. End of part 3.